Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. Appreciate you joining us today, and we are very excited to have another guest with us today, Pastor Rocky Randall from Iola Baptist Temple in Iola, Kansas. Pastor Randall, welcome to the show today.
Thanks.
How was that? So to start out, let's talk about yesterday's event. Now, are you the inventor of these potluck events? Because I never heard of them before you. Did you start this thing, or did you steal the idea from somebody?
Yeah, I just came up with it. I was wanting to do something on my own because a lot of these ultra runs are like real expensive, and you got to go travel to get there and everything. And I was like, I'm just going to do my own and invite anybody who wants to join me. Well, not that many people want to join you for that, but
No.
it's been something that we've been getting going. So the idea of the potluck, the name potluck, was just the thought of, hey, we'll just help each other out, and it'll just be a time of fellowship and not really like a serious competition or whatever. But anyway, there's probably some subliminal thing about potluck and eating, and Baptists like to eat. But
That
it's
is true.
Not that kind of potluck.
Well, one thing about that, the one I went to your place, I did 50 miles last year, and man, I did eat a lot along there, but I remember there was this one stretch where there was no stops for a long time, and we got so hungry. And I don't typically eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but somebody brought us one. It was the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich I've ever ate in my life. And I don't know if it was that good or if I was just that hungry, because you work up an appetite out there. I still think about that peanut butter and jelly sandwich sometimes. So I don't know if it was a special recipe or if I was just exceptionally hungry. But yeah, so we had our first one of those. We just did a potluck 50. We did a 50 miler. And so congratulations to Brother Hugo. He was the first one to finish on the bike in 4 hours and 40 minutes, and which was really good. I did when we did it at your place. I finished in just under 6 hours. Yeah. So it was a lot harder than I thought. And then Brother Austin Boatwright from your church, he did it on foot in 10 hours and 14 minutes. So 50 miles on foot is very impressive.
With very little training. He was like, since the last one that we did, he said the other day he ran like 5 miles and it felt really long, and he was like, this is going to be an interesting weekend. But it didn't affect him that much.
No. Yeah, so either way you look at it, that's very impressive. And he completed the 100-miler last year, but it said it took like 28 hours, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was 29, but that was my fault because I didn't know what he was going to be able to do. I knew after, because it was like the unknown after 50, and so I thought, well, he's going to be hurting real bad, so I was going to try to pace him. But even at that point, I was slowing him down because I was just going to hike. I couldn't run. And so he just stayed with me. And eventually, at the very end, I convinced him to go ahead and try to beat the 30-hour mark, and so he ran off.
So he ran like straight through the night, no breaks, nothing.
Oh yeah. My family would go and provide some aid here and there, and we would just kind of get in the car, and we both wanted to quit. And it's real easy to convince yourself that, I'm happy with 70 miles. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And they would talk us into going back out there, but
man. Yeah, that's great. Well, I think the only reason I went 50 miles that time was because I went 25 miles one way and I had to come back.
Right.
If I could have stopped at any point, I think I would have, because my legs were hurting so bad
right.
when we got done. But yeah, we need to, it's good to do things that are challenging, toughen you up, don't want to get lazy and all that. But anyway, today got a subject. I've been wanting to do a program on this, and so I thought I would do this while you were here. But the other day, while we were out soul winning, I don't even remember what happened, what we were talking about, but I got to thinking about something that I thought would be a really good subject for a show, and that is the personal benefits of soul winning. And I don't mean spiritually. Okay, obviously we know there's spiritual rewards for soul winning. We're changing people's eternal destination. We already know all that stuff. But as I was thinking about it, I realized that there are many things that I have gained personally in my life because of soul winning, because there's a lot of good character traits that it develops in you when you do something like that. And and obviously our main motivation for soul winning is the spiritual.
Right.
That's what we talk about all the time, because that is the main thing. Because our flesh tells us, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go out confronting people, and it doesn't really work. They're not repenting of enough sins. Blah blah. There's all the excuses you can come up with, and everybody's got those excuses.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, people who just do it, there's certain things character traits you typically see in those people that I think help them be successful people. I think there's a reason there's a lot of people in the ministry that are very successful people in the business world and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because our culture today, it is lacking in a lot of areas when it comes to different skills and character traits. And so this practice of soul winning and going out, walking the streets, knocking doors, putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, talking to people you don't know, talking to people who are going to disagree with you, all these things, they unknowingly, they develop some things in you that will benefit you greatly in your life. So I wrote down several things that I wanted to mention, and if you think of any of these things too, maybe you can mention in the chat or leave it in a comment later if you watch it later. But I think this is a good thing to think about, because again, we're raising losers in America today.
Absolutely.
I mean, we got a country of just pathetic losers that don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
You got these people that go to 4 years of college and are failures when they get out of college. They got a degree, but they can't get a job.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got Christian people who they didn't go to college, but yet they can go get a good job and they do fine successfully. Because at the end of the day, it's about character.
Right.
Colleges do not teach character. They can help develop character if you do the work, but at the end of the day, what they're doing does not promote character. And so, a college degree does not guarantee any success. So, one of the things that I wrote down that going soul winning teaches you is boldness.
Sure.
Okay? Now, we talk about boldness a lot in church, but wouldn't you agree that boldness is an important thing just in life?
Yeah.
In the job world,
Well, especially going into an interview.
Yes.
You walk in, you're kind of fiddling with your hands and not making eye contact
Right.
and everything, which if you're trying to do that out door-to-door soul winning, no one's going to give you 5 minutes of their time. I mean, imagine knocking on someone's door and you answer the door and the person doesn't even look at you. They're just kind of looking down the whole time or looking around, making side conversation. You wouldn't want anything to do with that person. And we want to go out soul winning for the sole purpose that we want to get these people saved. We want them to have our attention, and we want to just be good, representatives of the Lord. And if we're just out there kind of cowering and sheepish, they're not going to give us anything, any bit of our time at all. So absolutely, you have to learn boldness.
right?
If you can't be bold out soul winning, you're not going to be successful at all.
No, and one of the things too, and a lot of these kind of go together, but one of the things too is you learn how to communicate properly, and you are not going to get anywhere when you go out soul winning, if you're not looking people in the eye. If you're just kind of stumbling over your words, getting confused. And the thing is, I've gone out sewing with people that do all that stuff wrong, but everybody starts out bad.
Yeah.
But I've also watched people develop and get over those things and then do really well. Well, think of how important that is in that job interview, or even not just in a job. What if you're involved in sales?
Yeah.
You're trying to get people to buy your product. You're trying to change minds. And isn't that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Every time we're going out, we're trying to get people to change their minds. So what you end up doing is you start learning social cues. You start learning when they're how to tell if they're getting what you're saying, if they're not getting what you're saying. We know how to tell if they're just being polite and just waiting for us to finish our sentence so they can close the door. And we all learn to pick up on those things.
And you can't teach that. It needs to be something that you learn by experience.
Right.
Which going out there repetitively and dealing with people helps that, yeah.
Yes, yeah, because you can sit there and you can tell people to watch for these things, but if you've never done it, you're not really going to know how to see it.
Well, I couldn't even imagine trying to teach somebody by word and like with pictures and a diagram how to read social cues.
Right.
You just do after a while and just experience people. And one thing that I remember, and I remember when I would first go out soul winning all the time. There, you'll get those people that are like, "Hey, I'm from this church. I'm just inviting people to church." And they'll be like, "Okay, we already have a church," and they would start to shut the door. And I'd just like reach in there like, "Wait, but what if you died today? Do you know for sure they'll go to heaven?" And it's like, the thing is, I don't think that that's really a bad thing to do. But when I see someone that's just shutting the door and they don't want to talk to me personally, I've just kind of decided in my head, I'm not going to be the person that gets this person saved. Right. And so it's like the last thing that I want to do is just leave a bad testimony for the next guy that comes along. Maybe they're in the middle of something. Maybe they're doing something right now. I think I've been soul winning now for like 4.5 years. I've never seen somebody be shutting the door and then I jolt in with, "Wait, what if you die today? Do you know for sure you go to heaven?" And then they're just like, "Oh yeah, let me give you 10 minutes of my time." It's never happened before.
That's true. But you can experience, like you're saying, just through, time after time, you might learn like, okay, this person, when they come to the door, they look like, hey, this person's going to be closed. But maybe you can talk about something that you see in their yard. And I've heard people talk bad about that, but actually I think that's a skill that's very helpful. You say something nice about, or something that you can relate to. You got an interest, a similar hobby.
Yeah.
You say, well, that's not giving them the gospel. No, but that might get you the opportunity to preach the gospel to them. But that's something that you just learn.
And even if it doesn't, it can still leave behind a good testimony for the next guy that comes along.
Right. And like I said, and at the end of the day, and back to kind of the carnal benefits of it, all those things are so important if you're in sales, if you're doing a job interview, and not even just on a job interview, but on the job. There's people who that I've worked with before that are like hated, at the workplace, but they don't even know it. They don't even realize, hey, you are driving everyone nuts. You are making everybody miserable on the job, and not being able to read social cues is not a good thing.
No.
And then they're the ones they get fired. I don't even know why I got fired. Well, I promise everyone you work with,
their whole life is just a victim story.
Everybody knows. You work with knows why you got fired.
I was just thinking, like, we all know that Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, like, they're usually known as the ones that go out and do this. You ever think about how successful they are in the business world?
Yeah.
Because they've taught, to go do that, and they get over these obstacles of being fearful and timid, and there's a lot of business owners and multi-million-dollar companies that are run by Jehovah's Witnesses or more Mormons who, exactly what you're saying, they learn that skill through, going out and preaching their heresies.
Right. Yeah. Well, and because here's the thing, again, so we're focused on carnal.
Yeah.
You learn to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's not comfortable, in walking up into somebody else's house that you don't know, knocking on their door, knowing there's a good chance they're not going to be happy that you're there. And then two, and when I talk about uncomfortable situations, it's not just that. Look at how many, what are some things too? You got, like, for example, when you're going up to that house and they're already outside doing stuff, maybe there's a group of them, and, it's always uncomfortable inserting yourself in something that you weren't really invited to, and so, it's just one uncomfortable situation after another. But the thing is, you just do it. You learn to just get over, or most people today, they never get out of their comfort zone. If it makes them feel uncomfortable, they don't do it. Well, there's a reason some people get paid the big bucks to do certain things, because nobody else wants to do it.
Yeah.
And somebody got out of their comfort zone and they did something that was needed to do, but you've never done anything that you didn't feel like doing. And now look at where you're at, and so I think that's a big thing. And confrontation is not good. It's no fun getting yelled at, but that happens on the job sometimes. You have irate customers. Another thing too that I've learned is not to take things personally too.
Mm-hmm.
We have such a sensitive society
Yeah, we do.
that takes everything personal. I mean, somebody posts something they don't agree with on Facebook, they think it's geared towards them.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's somebody they don't even know. You know, it's just like everything is about me in our culture. But the thing that I've learned, and that I've learned over the years of soul winning, is that a lot of times the hostility these people have, it's just because it is because of the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, or maybe even a knucklehead Baptist that gave them a bad taste.
Yeah.
And so when they're talking down to you and being kind of degrading towards you, they don't know you. And so the thing is, when you're getting treated like that, you can't, you learn to not take it personal.
Yep.
And some people, I mean, I've known people that have quit their jobs just because the boss just had to get on them or something. They weren't even fired. They just had to call them into the office and talk to them. It's like, hey, your job performance isn't doing very well.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be appreciated, I'm out of here.
Soul winners get used to doors shut on them and people yelling, and you're just like, whatever, they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Talk to your soul winning partner and go on.
Exactly. You move on, go to the next thing.
So you have an interesting perspective on this, and I think I'm going to get an interesting perspective on it soon, because we'll be going to Chicago monthly starting next week, doing soul winning. But you're doing soul winning in Iola, right? And then you're also doing it in Kansas City, pretty much on a weekly basis. So when we're talking about like the uncomfortable situations and the just the confrontation of people, do you notice a big difference between when you're soul winning in a city versus a small town? Because I personally have in Chicago. People are a lot. Usually you think of like bigger cities and you think of just liberal, crazy people that hate you and despise you. But to me, I've noticed a lot of these people are literally just doing nothing. They're just kind of sitting out, basking in the sun all day. Yeah. And you just kind of approach them and they're not doing anything. Whereas out here, all the time, especially on Sunday afternoons and Saturday afternoons, people are outside, they're busy doing something. You go up to them and they want nothing to do with you. Because do you notice that?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the opposite, and I was like, that's not been my experience.
Yeah, not at all.
And Kansas City is way more receptive than and especially right now, we're going in between small towns and going to the really obscure drive out to this country.
Right.
They don't want you there. And some of them are Christians and they're nice people generally, but they just don't want people to visit them.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the biggest difference is the church. Church people are more hostile for soul winners than unchurched people.
They are.
And I think it's because a lot of them they take it personal when they tell you I'm Catholic or I'm whatever, and then you don't just automatically assume they're saved,
right?
And it's hard to get people to understand I'm not here to get you to be a Baptist, right? I'm here to tell you about how to get saved. Yeah. And it's like they have a tough time getting past that. But one thing I've noticed that makes a difference on that is when we go to farther away places, and I can tell them, hey, our church is an hour from here. We know you're probably not going to come to our church. And then it's like all of a sudden they let their guard down because, they're not trying to get me out of my church. Where out here, you're just trying to get me to leave my church, go to your church.
Yeah.
And, but I definitely think cities are way more receptive than small towns.
Well, something even along the lines of that is even within the cities, part of the reason that, people might think that cities are more receptive probably has to do with just where they're going in the city itself. And this is the thing that we were talking about just before this, because for those of you who watch this show regularly and see stuff and maybe the conversation doesn't flow that well, it's because we don't do a lot of planning on these. We just I found out the topic of this show 3 minutes before the rest of you.
I thought I told him already, but then I realized this morning I never told him.
So anyways, I was just trying to think about it, and my wife and I were actually having a conversation about this last night, just coincidentally. So I had a little bit of thing about it, but I was thinking about the personal benefits of soul winning and things that you can gain from it carnally, not just necessarily spiritually. And I was thinking about the financial gain that you can get from this, and not like people paying you or not anybody doing anything from you, but you can just go to places that are much more receptive with the gospel and much more interested in the gospel. And a lot of times it's because those are the poor areas. And, if you don't want to be poor, it just takes a real simple observation to look around at poor neighborhoods and then look at observations of the more wealthy neighborhoods. Now, the thing is, the more wealthy neighborhoods, they're not going to be that receptive to the gospel, so take that information with what you will. And maybe you don't want to get super rich because of that. You don't want to forget the Lord. But at the same time, you can go into these areas and cities that are super receptive to the gospel. You can see them just kind of sitting around, basking all day in the sun, and you can think, well, these are the people to go to. These are the ones that are receptive to the gospel. And yes, that's true, but do you want to just be sitting around basking in the sun all day?
Right.
Do you want to have no purpose in your life? Do you want to just kind of lay around and do nothing? And you don't want to do that. Do you want your teeth falling out? Do you want to be addicted to drugs? Do you want to live in trash and alcohol all over the place and dirty needles and things you use to smoke marijuana out of all over the place? You don't want to, but you can just look at the general surroundings, and you go drive through a wealthy neighborhood and ask yourself, how many cash now places do you see? How many of these loan places do you see? And just all the different financial track. Yeah. How many video game stores do you see? How many lottery places do you see? And the lottery, I thought about preaching a whole sermon on this one time, but I don't think it's really applicable to out here, in just, a smaller town. But the lottery is one of the most wicked things that this country has ever come up with. It's literally the selling to poor people of a get-rich-quick scheme. But ultimately what it does is it just rips the little bit of money that they have out of their hands with a hope that maybe I can get out of this area. Rather than if they would just hold on to that money and not basically give all that money to the government just for free, they might actually be able to do something and get out of these bad areas. But the lottery is just designed in a way to tax these people. And you say, well, it's not just for the poor. Anybody can play the lottery. Yeah, but go to a rich neighborhood and how many places do you see that you can play the lottery? How many gas stations in these rich neighborhoods are people actually buying the lottery tickets from, or buying the cigarettes, or buying the alcohol? It's non-existent. And the thing is, you can take that observation and look at it yourself and say, well, if I don't want to be basking out in the sun all day, if I don't want to just be, doing nothing with my life, nothing productive, on drugs, on alcohol, blowing all my money on lottery or blowing my money in the casinos, then maybe I shouldn't, go buy lottery tickets. Maybe I shouldn't buy cigarettes. Maybe I shouldn't buy alcohol. Maybe I shouldn't just throw my trash all over the ground and everything like that. And you yourself can know where a bad area is. Also, too, just kind of thinking, if you're trying to think of a place to live, and right now, if you wanted to buy a house cash in Chicago, you probably could do it for like $20,000, but you're not going to want to live in that neighborhood, where you're going to see a crime rate of like violent crime, 13,000 per 100 people. I mean, but you can go and drive into a neighborhood and also just by looking at it, wonder, is this a safe place for my family or not? And by looking at the surroundings and that, you can pick up a lot of stuff just by actually going here. And you see politicians talk a lot about wanting to help these people and wanting to do everything, but they don't actually go to these neighborhoods. They don't actually talk to these people, and they don't actually see these people. So some people might have the idea that like you go into a place like Chicago or just any inner city, and it's basically just thugs walking up and down the street shooting any person they see. And that's not the case. But it's also not really the case that you'd want to be walking around on those streets at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Well, yeah. And because that's the thing too, you get to see all the different demographics.
Yeah.
And most people today, it's amazing how many people, they like live in a very small world where they rarely leave the town they're in.
Yep.
They rarely talk to different people. I mean, most people in society today, their world is tiny.
Yeah.
And when you're a soul winner, especially when you go to a lot of different, not just one town, but different places, you see a lot of different things too. I mean, and you meet a lot of different types of people. You talk to a lot of different cultures too, and they're always talking about, they're doing all these things to, you got these some of the rich kids, they learn about other cultures, they'll do their, trips to these other countries, and you can learn a lot from that too. But, there's a lot you can learn just right here in this country. And you just going and visiting a foreign country and hanging out in the tourist area doesn't really teach you much about that culture.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, one of the things I enjoyed the most when I was in Ireland and getting to, you know, when we went out there, obviously most of the time I was with other saved people, and so I was around like-minded people a lot, and I enjoyed being out and about in the restaurants and, you know, hearing the Irish accent everywhere and all that. But I think where I got the most when it came to just kind of understanding life over there is when I went out soul winning.
Mm-hmm.
And we're out walking the streets, talking to people in the streets, going to houses, talking to people in their houses. And I just, you know, and you see a lot of similarities to what you see in America, but I saw some differences too.
Yeah.
You know, and it was interesting. And yeah, your average, you know, American today, they don't know anything they know about any type of culture. They watch it on television.
Yeah.
And look at how distorted their mind is when it comes to certain cultures too, you know, especially when it comes to the LGBT crowd.
Yeah.
You know, all they know about it is what they've seen on television,
Which is extremely glorified.
Oh my stars, is it
version of
glorified.
what it is.
But boy, you know, you go find the LGBT people out here, there's nothing glamorous.
Yeah.
There is nothing glorified about it. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we're the ones getting reality.
Yeah.
They're getting Hollywood.
Right.
You know, where we get reality.
Well, that goes with everything. I mean, even this past year with all this Black Lives Matter stuff, and just all these people that are trying to talk about all the, you know, the injustice that these people deal with just on a regular basis, and just the neighborhoods, and they're like, you as a white person, you have no idea what these people go through. It's like, actually, I see it on a regular basis, you know, and I'm actually doing something to help these people. Right. You're a liberal virtue signaler trying to make yourself look really impressive, but in reality, a lot of these people running up and down the streets with their signs saying Black Lives Matter are doing more to hurt these communities than they are to help them. And that stuff's so
I was thinking
wicked.
about Muslims too, like, you know, the media, you know, for quite some time was painting Muslims as just being these like hate, you know, Christians and hate. But when you're knocking on doors in communities, like we've gone in Kansas City, we have some areas that are very much like West African, like Muslim, and you actually talk to them about what they believe and get to know them a little bit. It changes your perspective on like, hey, just don't believe what Hollywood or the media puts out there about Muslims. So I think that's a great benefit of soul winning as well.
Well, yeah, because you know, you talk to your typical college age social justice warrior, and you ask them, you know, hey, have you actually been into the house of a Muslim or even a poor black family? And the thing is, I have been, you know, many times. You know, I've been in the homes of Muslims, of Hindus, of Buddhists, I went to a house. One guy, he had his own little temple inside there.
Yeah, up at the Native American place, I saw a guy like try to perform like a Native American ritual. And
We've been to we went into some
like,
Indians'
people are
houses,
crying all the time about, you know, all the racism towards the Native Americans. It's like, okay, but have you ever even met a Native American? You know, like, have you ever talked to one? Have you ever sat in their house and asked them if they're offended at all the stuff that you're offended at, you 20-year-old white liberal?
Right.
You know, I mean, good night.
Yeah.
Man. People are just insane when it comes to this stuff, and they're really...
and they're ignorant.
Yeah, it's just because they don't know. You know, it's like, I get irritated at it sometimes, but what I just tell myself is, these people, they just have no clue. They are the exact product that society is pushing out. They're not unique in what their beliefs are. They're not free thinkers. They are exactly what they are supposed to be. And it's like, it's our job to pull them out of that, wipe the mud off their eyes, and let them see what the world actually has to offer, and let them see the people that are in the world. Because especially when you get into all this stuff with race, and you watch a commercial now, and you know, it's just so happens that like there's 5 people in the commercial. One of them's white, one of them's a homo, one of them's black, one of them's Asian, one of them's Hispanic. And it's just like, oh, this is equal representation, and this is just getting people in. No, but what you're doing is you're literally only identifying people by the color of their skin at that point. You're not identifying people by their character, by the content of their heart, by the person that they are. You're identifying them by just what they look like. Mm-hmm. And so many people today, this year, have, this year especially, it's just been hyped up more than ever before. But they are completely erasing the content of character that people actually have. And the people are their own unique personality and they have their own things. And we're literally to the point as a society where we're defining the value of people by the color of their skin. We're back to that point. And it's like, if you think that you're not, just look around. The reason people get hired today, the reason you see, anytime in professional sports that there's a position open for a coach, if it's a black guy, they did a good thing. They hired a black coach. If it's not a black guy, they're a racist organization. It's terrible. But the thing is, so now we're to the point where you're a professional sports team, you have to hire a black coach or else you're a racist.
Yeah.
You're a CEO, your company's opened a position for a CEO to come in. If you hire a white rich guy, you're a racist. It has to be a black guy. And so we are very quickly lowering the quality. And you're saying, well, it can't be a black guy, it has to be a white guy. No, it needs to be the best person for the job. It needs to be a person with the character to get the job done. And we need to stop defining people in our society by the color of their skin. That's super wicked. That's going backwards. It's not progressive. It's the opposite of progressive. You're taking us back to the way that it used to be when we had segregation and we did separate people based on the color of their skin. Now you're just doing it the opposite way. It's not helping anything.
Well, and if I may say something too that's considered racist, is, again, you have Hollywood that always shows the racial diversity and everybody's the same. But here's the thing about different cultures are different.
Yeah.
And it's like we're not allowed to mention that. But at the same time, it's reality.
Yeah.
I get it. We're all people. A lot of the slogans are true. But, Muslims live different than Christians.
They do.
Black people, they have different things in their culture than white people.
Yep.
Mexican people, there's real cultural differences.
Yeah.
And you know what? Some of those things that one group does, white people don't really care for it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're racist.
Yeah.
We have a different culture, so we're not really going to like those things that much. Some of these people, the way they're living is how they want to live.
Yeah.
They don't want to blend in with the typical American society. And the thing is, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get everybody to just kind of be one thing. They're actually trying to remove diversity.
Yeah.
By basically getting all these, many multicolored millennial hipster types that all look exactly the same, just different colored skin.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not reality. And so, soul winners, they know reality because they talk to different people all the time. And you've seen it too. When you go to when you're talking to Muslims, they're usually all in one area.
Yeah.
They typically all end up kind of in the same place. And it's like that with a lot of different groups. And why are they doing that? Is it because they're racist? No, it's just because
that's how they live.
They prefer to be around people like them.
That's how a lot of people are, honestly.
It's okay to be that way.
In major cities, you'll have your Hispanic area, you'll have your black area, you'll have your white neighborhoods, and then sometimes on the edges there's like little bleeding over and stuff like that. That's just how society works. It's like people get irritated at that, and it's like, well, if you want to just define the black neighborhood as the poor neighborhood, which honestly a lot of times it is, maybe the black people could just not do a lot of junk that makes their neighborhood so trashy. If all the white people decided in their neighborhood to just throw their garbage on the ground all day, shoot each other, and get involved in drugs and blow all their money on the lottery, then the white neighborhood would be the bad neighborhood. It's the actions of people that make their neighborhoods bad. And it's just the content of things like that. If I'm telling you, if these places would clean up the trash and they would stop and they would run all the gangs out of their area and they just get rid of that garbage, it would be nice places. Yeah. And you wouldn't pay attention to the color of their skin, but that's just the way that our society's gotten. I was just thinking what you were talking about, cultures. I was just thinking of food. I was thinking I could never live in a Hispanic family. I like Mexican.
I could.
I like Mexican food. I don't want to eat it every day. you know. And it's like even the real Mexican. I'm not talking like
Are you
Taco
saying
Bell
Mexicans
kind of stuff.
only eat Mexican food? How racist.
No, here's what I'll say. Mexicans eat Mexican food about as often as Americans eat American food. And then they'll have like a cheeseburger every once in a while, I think. Like when we're having a taco night, you know. They have like cheeseburger Tuesdays when we have taco Tuesdays.
Right.
But, you know, that's just the way that I am, because that's what I grew up on. You know, I grew up eating cheeseburgers. I grew up eating, you know, all the different American foods that we've got. And, you know, sometimes I'll eat Italian, sometimes I'll eat that. But, you know, honestly, I could go to Italy and I'd probably really enjoy the food there for a while. But eventually I just want to come back to America, you know, because it's just the food that I'm used to. And it's like when I see these people grouping together and I see them just eating all the food that's from a country that they're native to or food that they're used to, I don't look at that and think that it's weird. It's just normal. That's just what they're used to eating.
Yeah.
If I were to do that, I'd have to change what I ate for the past, you know, my entire life, basically, and change it all up and do everything. And I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm happy with the food that I eat now. You know?
Right. So we're getting close to the wrap up. Do you have any more special benefits that you had written down? I know we talked a lot of different ones.
I thought of one that this is going to sound super carnal, but
that's what we're going for. We've been getting a little too spiritual.
That's why I was thinking. But sometimes, and I don't let this interfere like with my soul winning presentation, obviously, but sometimes you like, hey, I needed a plumber, and this guy is like, I needed a landscaper, and this guy right here, like, I didn't know he was like.
So you get to meet people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beneficial knowing people.
Yeah, it is.
You know, because how many times have you been there where you just
in a small town you'll see these people?
Yeah, exactly.
We got that right. We need a plumber here at the church
that's
right now,
one of
and
the
I can't get anybody lined up.
That's one of the extreme. I think that's one where the small town definitely gets the better thing, because in the city, you know, everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. They probably won't even tell you what they do, you know. Right. But a small town, you might have more of a conversation like that and be more open to it. And yeah, I haven't had anything like that specifically where I've known people like that, but I think that there was a time that when we were back in Ohio and I was soul winning in the neighborhood there, that I got a guy to come to church for a while because he was able to like do something that we specifically needed done in the church. Right. And we were just like, hey, well, you can do that. And he actually came to a few services. But
yeah, one of the other ones I had too, I think we might have briefly touched on this, but you know, it is important, you know, you learn how to talk with people who don't agree with you. And in this social media world that we live in, where you have these, you know, mentally inbred nut jobs that only allow people who think exactly like them to be in their world. Okay? And I called you that, mentally inbred. All right, people. You know, you need to learn how to live in a world where people who don't agree with you. And when you go out soul winning, you know, you don't get to, you know, when you go up to somebody's house uninvited, everybody know, pretty much anybody has enough social awareness to know you don't get to be a jerk when you're there. And so you have to be respectful when you're trying to give somebody the gospel if they don't agree with you, and you got to learn how to talk to them and communicate in a way to change their mind. Yeah. And most people today, they just immediately run from those who don't agree with them. Yeah. And you know, they never think about maybe a unique perspective that person has. You know, you don't like Joe Biden, you love Donald Trump. You know, everybody's got a small box that they put everyone in. Mm-hmm. And I'm sick of the mental inbreds in the social media world. You know, these people, they really need to learn how to understand that in this world we live in, everybody has their own unique brain. And God hasn't given them the ability to control that other person's brain. Yeah. And that's what they want.
You know what you can't do in real life? Block people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, seriously. Especially like in the workplace. Mm-hmm. I've noticed this, that I can see, I don't think that I've got any individual problems at workplace. I think most of the time I just kind of go on with my day and don't talk to people. But when I do talk to people, I think that I'm, you know, generally liked. But I will notice certain situations where I can just see two people that just don't get along. Mm. And it's like whenever they're talking to each other, they're fighting about something or they're arguing. And, you know, in my head, I just think to myself, like, those people would probably love to just block one another. You know, just cancel the other person. It's like, but you can't do that in real life. You have to learn to disagree with people, and you have to learn these basic skills. And that is a pretty basic skill that's been forgotten severely in our society. And I mean, the thing is, you'll have people too that will be like, oh, I'm really good at disagreeing with people, you know, when they have the minority of the position, you know. And it's like, you know, I don't mean to step on toes here for some of the people that might be listening to this, but when it comes to some of this stuff with COVID and, you know, the whole anti-mask thing, you know, if you're saying people need to be able to disagree with you, then you need to be able to disagree with people that are for the masks and are for the lockdowns, the different stuff like that. And you say, well, those people are fighting for the New World Order. Well, okay, but be able to disagree with people. Be able to be on the same level with people and understand where they're coming from. Because listen, I'm not for any of that stuff. And personally, I don't see how anyone could be for any of that stuff. I think it's insane. But at the same time, we don't want to just get this attitude where we're just kind of high-minded and we're better than everybody else. And we can easily get to that point if we are just kind of putting everybody down and thinking that they're garbage. Being able to disagree with people is pretty essential, especially this past year, because I mean, when all this stuff started out, very little information was given to everybody that everybody formed a concrete opinion on immediately, almost, and then we're just asked to do all these crazy things, and everybody did different stuff, which is exactly what people would do when you're given very little information with a concrete opinion. And then it just caused a ton of just crazy division from it immediately. And it's because our thing that we have as a society, which is a disability to exist with people that disagree with you, was basically revealed. You know, when you're constantly around people, I think that's what happens when you have certain just friend groups in general, and everybody just develops their own little circle where everybody agrees with them exactly on everything. And then all of a sudden there's some kind of disagreement put in the middle of them. And then they're just like, well, we don't agree anymore, so I guess we're just done.
Yeah.
You know, that's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
That's ridiculous.
Well, hey, we're out of time, but appreciate you joining us. Looking forward to the preaching this afternoon. And hopefully this was a good discussion just to motivate y'all to get out there and go learn, get some of these skills. Our country's a mess. You don't want to be mentally inbred. No. And that's what some of y'all are working towards every day. And you're going to end up being a freak when it comes to your positions politically, religiously. Don't be that way. Get out there and just be obedient. And it's God doesn't, the Bible doesn't always explain in detail all these things that you need to do in life like we've been talking about. But the thing is, you'll find out when you obey the commandments that God gave, the simple commandments, it actually takes care of all that stuff. As we look at these complicated problems that we're having, it turns out the solutions to all these complicated problems come from getting back to obeying what God originally commanded. And so the Bible has it all. And you want to get the full package, get in the Word. But we appreciate you watching this. Sorry, this is the first time we did not have a preaching clip of the week. I did not get one together. I had a crazy week. But anyway, next week is our last Sunday morning, live Sunday morning show. So make sure you join us as we will have Pastor Patrick Boyle as our guest, and we're looking forward to that. So God bless you. We will see you all next week.